What if the exact reason you're struggling to reach your biggest academic milestones is simply that you set a goal in the first place?
I mean, it sounds totally counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, maybe even a little absurd.
Definitely. We're all conditioned to believe that surviving midterms or, passing some massive licensing exam requires this intense, goal-driven test of endurance.
Right, like you picture yourself staring up at this mountain of textbooks, relying entirely on caffeine and, well, sheer willpower to summit the peak,
Exactly. And that framework, it operates on a really dangerous assumption.
which is,
It assumes that if you fail, it's a moral failing. Like, it means you just didn't want it badly enough.
oh, wow. Yeah, or that you lacked the mental fortitude to push through.
Right. But when we look at the actual mechanics of high performance, especially through the lens of systems-based productivity, that mountain doesn't actually represent a test of endurance at all.
It's a completely different landscape.
It really is. We enter a space where motivation is actually the least important variable in the whole equation.
Welcome to today's deep dive. If you're a student, or honestly just anyone tasked with absorbing a massive amount of complex information, and you're exhausted by the constant stress of traditional goal setting, we are speaking directly to you today.
Absolutely.
We're on a mission to build a foolproof, systems-based study routine. We're going to hand you a concrete, step-by-step blueprint that makes getting your work done the default outcome rather than, an act of sheer willpower.
And to build this architecture, we have a phenomenal stack of sources on the table.
We really do.
We're synthesizing insights from James Clear's highly acclaimed book, Atomic Habits, some pretty unconventional strategies from serial entrepreneur Scott Adams, and a really comprehensive handbook dedicated entirely to systems-based productivity.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with a concept that honestly feels a little bit like a slap in the face the first time you hear it, courtesy of Scott Adams.
Oh, you mean his claim that goals are for losers?
That's the one. I mean, if you've spent your whole life being told to set smart goals, write them on your mirror, visualize them every morning, hearing someone say, goals are for losers, just sounds ridiculous.
It is aggressive, certainly, but the underlying logic is incredibly sharp.
How so?
Well, Adams defines a goal as a reach it and be done objective.
Right.
So the fundamental flaw of a goal is its rigidity. It forces you into a binary state.
Like pass or fail.
Exactly. If your objective is to get a 95% on an organic chemistry final, you're basically operating in a continuous state of failure until the exact moment you receive that grade.
Man, that sounds exhausting when you put it like that.
It is, and there's a deeper psychological trap here too, which James Clear brilliantly identifies as survivorship bias.
Oh, right. It's like looking at a billionaire who dropped out of college and concluding that dropping out of college is the secret to becoming a billionaire.
That is the perfect illustration.
You're just completely ignoring the thousands of people who dropped out and went broke.
Exactly. We only study the people who end up on the podium. Think about it. Every single athlete standing at the starting line of the Olympic marathon wants to win the gold medal.
Right, nobody's there to lose.
Every pre-med student wants to get into medical school. So if both the successful and the unsuccessful people share the exact same goal, then the goal itself cannot be the variable that separates the winners from the losers.
That makes so much sense.
Clear uses the historical example of the British cycling team. For decades, they were kind of the laughingstock of the cycling world.
Oh yeah, they were terrible.
Right, and they didn't suddenly start winning the Tour de France because they gathered in a room and decided they wanted to win more than the French or the Italians.
I mean, they already wanted to win.
Everyone did. What actually propelled the British team to unprecedented dominance was abandoning that overarching goal and implementing a system of continuous, microscopic improvement.
Like what kind of improvements?
I mean, tiny things. Testing different massage gels for muscle recovery or redesigning the bike seats for better aerodynamics.
Wow. It reminds me of the messy room analogy from our sources.
Oh, that's a great one.
Like, if your bedroom is a total disaster and you set a goal to clean it, you can probably summon the motivation to scrub it top to bottom one weekend.
Sure, you power through it.
But achieving that goal only creates a momentary change.
Right.
If you haven't changed the sloppy habits, the underlying system of where you put your clothes or how you handle your trash, you're just treating a symptom.
You really are.
In 2 weeks, you'll be sitting in a messy room all over again. It's the yo-yo effect.
Yeah, because you're fighting against the current of your own habits instead of just changing the direction of the river.
So to synthesize this, goals are kind of like staring at the scoreboard for the entire basketball game.
Exactly.
The only way to actually win the game is to stop looking at the score and focus entirely on running the plays.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
But wait, if my mind is constantly obsessing over the scoreboard and not the game, then my mind is actually the problem here, right?
Yeah, it often is.
Does that mean we have to somehow bypass the brain entirely just to get started on the work?
That is the exact pivot we need to make. The answer is yes.
Really? Bypass the brain?
Completely. Every robust system starts outside of your head. It begins in the physical space around you.
Okay, I'm listening.
This is the first critical layer of an effective system designing your environment.
Because if the physical environment is fighting your intentions, the system will eventually collapse.
Inevitably. A well-designed environment acts as an invisible hand.
An invisible hand, I like that.
Yeah. It quietly nudges you into action, bringing the friction of starting down to nearly zero. What's fascinating here is, well, how much heavy lifting your environment does for your motivation, neurologically speaking.
How so? Like, what's happening in the brain?
Humans suffer from something called limbic friction.
Limbic friction.
Right. It's the raw energy required to overcome your brain's natural resistance to a new, difficult task.
Oh, like that feeling of dread when you have to open a textbook?
Exactly. If you design the environment correctly, you dramatically lower that limbic friction. You don't need to feel motivated because the room itself dictates your behavior.
Let's give the listener some specific ways to design this. What does that invisible hand actually look like for a student designing a study environment?
Well, the primary directive is to drastically minimize setup time.
Okay.
Your tools must open right where you left off. The threshold is about 30 seconds.
Wait 30 seconds.
Yep. If it takes you more than 30 seconds to clear off last night's dinner, find your textbooks, locate a highlighter, and, boot up your laptop to the right module, you have already introduced enough limbic friction to derail the session.
You're just giving your brain an excuse to quit.
Exactly. The physical space must be deeply predictable.
The systems handbook actually mentions creating a very strict separation between input and output zones. I think this is brilliant.
It really is. It creates physical boundaries for cognitive tasks.
What does that look like practically?
For a student, this looks like a completely clutter-free desk that is reserved exclusively for output.
Just output.
Right. When you sit there, you have only your laptop open and a single pinned chapter summary document visible.
So no extra syllabi lying around.
No syllabi, no empty coffee cups, absolutely nothing that suggests you should be doing anything other than the singular task at hand.
And we can't talk about physical boundaries without talking about friction boundaries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A system is defined just as much by what it excludes as by what it includes.
The sources are so adamant about this to protect your focus. It means absolutely no notifications during a study session.
Done? Zero.
Your phone isn't just face down, it is physically in another room.
It has to be.
And this detail really struck me. No tool switching in the middle of a task.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Like if you're reading a PDF textbook, you aren't simultaneously hopping over to a web browser to format a Google Doc or check an email. You stay locked in one tool.
We have to understand the mechanism behind that rule, though. It comes down to a concept known as attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah. Every single time you switch tools or look at a notification, your brain physically leaves a piece of its cognitive focus behind on that previous tab or app.
Oh, wow.
And it takes your brain upwards of 20 minutes to fully recalibrate to the primary task.
20 minutes just from checking a text message.
Yep. You are essentially bleeding mental energy every time you toggle between windows.
So relying on sheer motivation is like trying to light a heavy log with a match. It takes an exhausting amount of energy.
Exactly.
But the environment is the kindling. A clean desk and zero notifications make the fire much easier to start.
Spot on.
But I have to admit, even with the perfect kindling, staring at a massive, dense textbook can still feel incredibly intimidating.
Of course it can.
How do we actually cross the threshold from sitting at a perfectly optimized desk to doing the deeply uncomfortable work of studying?
This brings us to the ignition switch for your kindling. We need to introduce the minimum viable system.
The MVS.
Or the MVS, yeah.
Yeah.
And the absolute necessity of a start ritual.
A start ritual.
Right. The biggest misconception students have is that they need to be consistent with the deep, heavy work right out of the gate.
But they don't.
They don't. You only need to be consistent with the start.
The start is the anchor for the entire session.
Exactly. For a student, an effective start ritual must be short between 60 to 120 seconds.
That's it. Just a minute or two.
That's it. It must be brutally simple. It must involve physical movement, and it is entirely non-negotiable.
Let's walk through an exact 60-second start ritual so the listener can visualize it.
Okay, here is a perfect example. You sit down at your clutter-free desk.
Check.
You open the textbook. You physically pick up your notes from yesterday and review them for exactly 30 seconds.
Okay, just 30 seconds.
Then you write down one single bullet point summarizing what you just read.
One bullet point.
That is the entire ritual. It bypasses that limbic friction we talked about because writing one bullet point feels effortless.
Right. Anyone can do that.
Exactly. And the 45-minute deep study session that follows is simply a natural cascading consequence of completing that 60-second anchor.
It's the domino effect in action.
It is. And to make this repeatable every single day, the handbook outlines a strict formula for your minimum viable system.
Okay, what's the formula?
It relies on 3 components: one trigger, one action, one container.
Trigger, action, container.
Right. If it takes you more than one sentence to describe your daily study system, it is too complex and it will break.
So what does a trigger, action, and container template actually look like for someone hitting the books?
The trigger is the predetermined event that kicks off the sequence. So something like, after my first morning coffee.
Okay, that's easy.
The action is the immediate physical step we just discussed: open my chapter summary document.
Got it.
And the container is a highly specific, finishable unit of work. For example, read 5 pages.
After my first morning coffee, open chapter summary, read 5 pages. That is beautifully simple.
It leaves no room for debate. And to ensure it remains simple, you must practice externalizing your cognition.
Walk me through what you mean by externalizing cognition.
Well, your brain is a processing engine, right? It's designed for creativity, synthesis, critical thinking.
Sure.
But it is terribly inefficient at storage.
Oh, definitely. I forget things instantly.
Right. So you should never waste cognitive load trying to remember what chapter you were supposed to read or how you like to format your study guides. You need to build an external brain.
Like an app or something.
Yeah, use standard templates for your chapter summaries. Invest in flashcard software that schedules your reviews automatically.
Okay.
The rule of thumb is, if you perform a specific study setup more than twice, create a template for it. Make the environment hold the memory so your brain can hold the focus.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this trigger-based architecture, anchoring your study session to your morning coffee rather than a rigid 9 a.m. alarm, it relies entirely on adapting to your natural momentum.
It does.
You aren't forcing a brittle time schedule that shatters the moment you hit snooze or like your morning commute runs late.
Exactly.
You just wait for the trigger to happen, whenever that is, and the system activates.
It creates flexibility within a very structured boundary. It bends, but it doesn't break.
Okay, I'm going to throw a massive wrench into this.
Hit me.
This all sounds fantastic for a normal, highly optimized Tuesday. You get your coffee, you sit at your spotless desk, you do your 60-second ritual, and you execute.
Right.
But we are talking about students here. What about the days when you're running on 3 hours of sleep? You are completely burnt out, you're fighting a cold, and the very thought of reading 5 pages makes you want to cry.
We've all been there.
Right. Does this entire trigger-based system just implode?
That is exactly the breaking point for almost everyone who relies on goals.
They just give up.
Yeah. They have one terrible low-energy day, they miss their goal, the guilt sets in, and the whole house of cards collapses.
It's that yo-yo effect again.
Precisely. But a robust system doesn't demand perfection, it demands connection.
Connection.
Yes, it actually plans for exhaustion. This is the purpose of the 2-track system.
Okay, the 2-track system. How does this save us on our worst days?
It respects the natural biological variability in your daily energy levels, but it keeps you in contact with the material every single day.
So you don't just take the day off?
No. Track A is for your standard or high energy days. That's when you do the deep work, the heavy reading, the essay drafting.
And track B.
Track B is your safety net. Track B is strictly for light maintenance, and it relies on something called atomic commitments.
Atomic commitments, meaning actions that are so microscopically small that they require almost zero cognitive load.
Actions so laughably easy that you can complete them on your absolute worst day without hesitation.
Let's give our students some concrete tools here.
Yeah.
If they wake up and realize they're firmly on a Track B low-energy day, what are 3 specific atomic commitments they can fall back on to keep the system alive?
Okay, number 1, read exactly 1 paragraph of your textbook.
1 paragraph.
Number 2, process and review 1 single flashcard.
Just 1 flashcard.
Just 1. Or number 3, Highlight one single section of a research paper. That is it. You do one of those and you walk away.
Read one paragraph.
Just one. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the function of an atomic commitment is not to absorb a massive amount of academic material.
Because you obviously aren't.
Right. The function is to prevent a 0 day.
A 0 day.
A 0 day is when you completely detach from the work. 0 days kill psychological momentum. Doing just one tiny thing keeps the neurological pathway active.
I hear the theory, but I have to ask the skeptical question.
Go for it.
Honestly, how does reading one single paragraph help me pass an organic chemistry final? I mean, from an informational standpoint, it feels like I'm doing absolutely nothing.
And from a purely informational standpoint, you are correct. One paragraph will not teach you organic chemistry.
Right.
But systems aren't just about information processing. They are about psychology. And this leads us to the hidden engine driving this entire approach. Identity stability.
Identity stability. This is where we get into how you actually see yourself.
Yes. We have to understand a psychological framework called self-perception theory.
Okay.
It suggests that we don't just act based on who we think we are. We figure out who we are by observing our own actions.
Oh, wow.
Consistency is a maintenance problem, not a motivation problem. When you repeat these tiny daily actions, even if it's just highlighting one sentence while you have a fever, you are casting a vote for your identity.
So behavior reinforces identity, and then identity drives future behavior.
Precisely. If you open your textbook and read one paragraph every single day, no matter what, you eventually stop viewing yourself as an imposter struggling to keep up with the syllabus.
That makes a lot of sense.
You observe your own unbroken streak, and your brain concludes, I am someone who studies every day. You become someone who shows up.
You're literally proving it to yourself with physical evidence.
Exactly. And once that identity shift happens, the internal debate vanishes.
What do you mean?
You no longer wake up and negotiate with yourself asking, should I study today? Do I have the energy?
Right, because you just do it.
It is no longer a chore you have to motivate yourself to do. You just are a person who studies, the same way you're a person who brushes your teeth. It becomes a fundamental characteristic of who you are.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize this journey for you, the listener, trying to survive and thrive in your own academic arena.
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
It means officially abandoning the scoreboard. It means taking the crushing pressure off the massive end goal of getting the perfect grade and shifting all of your attention to the architecture of your day.
It is about engineering your environment so the invisible hand lowers your limbic friction and physically pushes you toward the desk.
It's about building that 60-second start ritual with a clear, minimum viable system, a simple trigger, a single action, and a small container. You use the kindling to start the fire.
And it is about giving yourself grace on the bad days by utilizing atomic commitments.
Right, you protect your identity as a consistent student by refusing to have a 0 day.
Exactly. It completely flips the script on how we approach hard work.
It really does.
Yeah.
But there is one final concept from Scott Adams that I think perfectly contextualizes why this approach compounds so powerfully over the long term.
Oh, the success formula.
Yes. He argues that success is ultimately a math equation. Success equals luck multiplied by the skills you obtain.
It's a brilliant formula. Look at the early career of Bill Gates.
Oh.
Were there other teenagers in the world with comparable or even better raw programming logic than Bill Gates?
Probably a lot of them.
Almost certainly. But Gates benefited from massive, undeniable luck. He happened to be born at the exact right moment in history, and he had highly unique, almost unheard of access to a university computer lab when almost no one else on Earth did.
That's the luck variable. You can't control that.
You can't. But here's the critical part of the equation. He could only capitalize on that massive stroke of luck because his daily system of writing code had built up his skills.
Oh, I see.
When the lucky opportunity finally arrived, his system had already made him ready to catch it.
So if he had just set a vague goal to, be successful, but hadn't built a daily system of coding, that luck would have just evaporated.
Entirely. Goals put blinders on you, systems leave you open, continuously developing your baseline skills so that when luck strikes, you have the capacity to leverage it.
You can't control when a lucky break will happen in your life, whether that is an unexpected internship opening up, a sudden flash of inspiration for a master's thesis, or crossing paths with the exact right mentor. You can only control the system.
And that invites a deeper question.
What's that?
Well, if your identity is no longer frantically tied to getting an A or passing the test, but rather anchored in simply being someone who shows up consistently, What happens when you finally graduate?
Wow. Yeah.
You might suddenly realize that what you were building all along wasn't just a study system for a semester.
No, you were quietly programming the operating system for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
That is an incredible lens to view your daily habits through. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you take these blueprints, optimize your environment, and never suffer a 0 day again. Until next time, take care.